My family gets together with me every now and then and says, we just got to hear some of your stories. They love to hear my stories. And a lot of times at Christmas time is when they do it. It's kind of traditional. Traditionally at Christmas is when we do this, but it's not uncommon to be July or April when they'll say, tell us some of those awesome stories that we love so much. And so I, sometimes reluctantly, I'll break out a story or two, and they like to hear, about, they like to hear about, my younger days growing up, and, we were poor folks, and they like to hear some of those stories, and so I like to tell them those stories, and I loved watching their faces, how it's like the anticipation is just overwhelming in their faces when I tell these stories. And so I'm going to tell a few of them here tonight and just let you watch their joy, okay? And so that's sort of what we're going to do. So I like to let you know, Bert, first of all, we were raised there were 4 of us kids. We were raised in the home of a pastor, and Dad always pastored these smaller churches, and we just didn't have a whole lot. We were poor folks. How many folks that were poor growing up? All right, a lot of folks here. Well, I'm telling you, when we were kids, we were so poor we used to have to make our own water, and now that's poor right there. Mama would break out, some nights she'd break out a dessert. She said, I've got dessert for you, and it would be ice. We would have some ice for dessert. She had a turnip green patch back out in the back of the house, and we ate those turnip greens. And y'all have turnip greens growing up? We ate so many turnip greens when we were growing up that she used to have to put kerosene rags around our ankles to keep the cutworms from getting us. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, I remember nights when we didn't have any food. You can't make this stuff up. We didn't have any food. We would sit down at the table, and Mama would read us recipes. Yeah. We couldn't pay the light bill, and I remember sometimes at night, sometimes Dad would, during the night, he would unplug the clocks, and we wouldn't have anything to wake up to the next morning. I remember we had a dish that we called, we always look forward to this day. We'd sit down at the table, we'd all have our plate, we'd have a cat head biscuit. Y'all like cat head biscuits? Yeah, that's good stuff. We'd have a cat head biscuit in our plate, and we had this one single light hanging from a wire over our dinner table, and there was a little light bulb screwed into that socket, and there was a string, that you turned it on with. On the bottom of that string, Mama would tie a piece of one fried piece of chicken. It's all we had. And she would swing that chicken around that table, and when that shadow came by your plate, you just sop it up and eat it. Shadow chicken. When she announced shadow chicken night, I was fired up. We had, sometimes for lunch, we'd have what we call prairie sandwiches. That's 2 pieces of bread with wide open spaces in between them. I remember one day, she served us self-rising dough for breakfast. We ate that self-rising dough for breakfast. We got out in the sun at lunchtime, and we swelled up for supper. You You can't make that up. You can't make it up. One time I asked my daddy for a Happy Meal. He took me to McDonald's. We got in the drive-thru line, and he put a Happy Meal on layaway. Yeah. You know, I have to hand it to my mom. My mom's here tonight, and she knows this is true. She, what I'm about to tell you, even though we didn't have a whole lot, she would try to provide for us the best that we could have. And but we seem to always come up with real close to the actual name brand. It would be a knockoff. I remember asking her for a members-only jacket. Y'all remember those things? And she got me one. I got to school and realized it said only member. Well, and some of my buddy friends at school had these lunch pails that were made out of tin, and they had stamped in them action figures like Superman and Batman. Y'all seen those? My friends had those things. I went to my mom. I said, Mom, I got to have me one of those tin lunch pails with an action figure stamped in it. And she got me one. It was round and it had the word lard stamped in it. You can't make that up. I wish you could have seen me trying to convince my buddies at school that there was an action figure called Lard Man. I told them he went around sitting on folks. He was a heavy-set guy, and he was a lard man. So, man, I also got to see my buddies pulling out of their tin lunch pails. They pull out something I'd never seen them before. Famous Amos cookies. I tried one of my friend's cookies, and they were awesome. Went to my mom, looking for a name brand. I said, Mom, I got to have some Famous Amos cookies. The next day, in my Lard Man lunch pail, I had Doofus Rufus cookies. You don't believe it, do you? Zoom in on that, Derek. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up. Doofus Rufus cookies. They were good, though. I have to give you that. My school I went to was a poor school. And I was in the band. The band had 2 trumpets, 3 trombones, a tuba, and the bell was missing off the tuba. Sound like a freight train. And I got into the drum line. I guess it was a drum line. They only had 1 drum. And we got out there, and the problem was they only had 1 drumstick. I wish you could have seen me trying to play the national anthem with 1 drumstick. It's the beatingest thing I ever seen. The highlight of my week, when we would have the band play, the highlight of the week was when we would get out at the end of the game, win or lose now, win or lose. I would get out there with the band, and we'd play the class song right in the 50-yard line. 2 trumpets, 3 trombones, and actually it was a snare. If you've only got 1 stick, you have to take the S off. I played the snare drum. And The highlight of my week, again, win or lose, the highlight of my week was we played the class song and the entire student body sang both verses and both courses of Why Me, Lord. You know, and I've got my family up here, and I think I can safely say this, that all you that have more than one child, you have at least one smart aleck young'un, don't you? Well, I got one. He's right down there at the end. And he came up to me one day and he said, Dad.
I just married in.
Dad, where'd you get that donut hairdo? That's what you talking about. He said, donut hairdo, you know, it's got a hole in the middle. He said, did you get that hairdo done at Heavenly Hair? What are you talking about? He said, you know, Heavenly Hair, there'll be no parting there. I looked at my son with all the love I could muster in my heart, and I said, son, you're a loser. You know? Well, what do you say to that? Well, but you know, all parents had it worse off than we did, you know. No matter how bad you had it as a child, you talk to your parents about it, they had it worse. Y'all know what I'm talking about? I mean, I remember asking, I said, Dad, we had one heater in the house, and I said, Dad, it's cold in here. He said, hey, when I was growing up, we didn't even have a heater, you know. Told him one time the toilet was stuck. He said, when I was growing up, I didn't have a toilet. Told him one time that it was hot in the summer in there, and had one little air conditioner in the window, and he said, hey, all the air conditioning we had was open the windows, and what little breeze came across the cotton fields is all we're going to get. And then one day came, and I had to actually go to school without any shoes. Can't make this up. I said, Dad, I don't want to go to school without no shoes on. Oh, come on, son, he said. When I was your age, we didn't even have any feet. Well, anyway, you see how much they love this. You see how much they love this.